Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 User Group webinar. My name is Andy Cluck, and I'm on the marketing team here at Ledgeview Partners. We're a Microsoft Dynamics Gold partner. For today's user group, Mike Dodds is once again presenting for us today. But before I turn things over to him, to get us started, I just want to mention, as usual, the user groups will be recorded. You're going to get that same link you always do. It's going to be sent to everyone who registered afterwards, and you can view it on demand. If you have a question that pops up during today's webinar, we're not going to have time to get to them today. We have a full slate to cover, but as always, still submit those in the question pane in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we're going to follow up with you afterwards. All right, I promised Mike my intro would be very short and sweet today, so enough of me talking already. Let's get to why you're all here. Mike, we are covering some more of the admin tips today, aren't we?
Yes, sir, and thank you for that great intro. As Andy likes to joke about, your monthly weather report, I'll go ahead and tell you that fall is upon us here in Wisconsin and winter is shortly to follow. So hopefully everyone's weather out there is a little bit better than ours. But like you said, we have a full slate to get to today. The second half of the admin training, I'm really excited to get into these topics. So let's jump on in. First, we're going to start off with read-only versus field security profile. And really the main question to ask is, how secure are read-only fields? Read-only fields are the ones where you lock them down with a simple checkbox from the form section. Now, what this does is it only takes effect in the web browser on the client side. Now, what that essentially means for you admins is that there's some tools out there that can simply get around that and open up those read-only fields so your users can actually edit them. One of those add-ons is a Google Chrome add-on called Level Up for Dynamics 365. And I know this sounds cheesy and corny, but with one click of a button called God Mode, and that is exactly what it's called, it renders all read-only fields null and void. They can update those fields. And then also, if any of your users have even a small dev knowledge, or they can even look this up, how to render that field not read-only, basically allow them to edit that field. So if it's really a situation based on security and not wanting them to be able to edit that at all or even see it, you really want to look at what's called field security profiles. Basically, it's a more secure lockdown of the fields. They can't be bypassed by developer tools or add-ons. It's done on the server side, so it's more secure. So it prevents users from even being able to read a field. So that visible field, you can actually set it to where it's not visible for certain people, but visible for others through field security profile. And then gives specific people edit access as well. Now, if you're a system admin, anytime a field is added or enabled for field security profile, it's automatically given access rights to system admins are automatically put in there. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you're system admin, don't worry, you're automatically given rights to basically read, read and edit, essentially. Now I'm going to do a quick demo of how field security profiles are set up. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a field security profile for the manual opportunity discount field on opportunities within my test org. We're going to let all users in CRM be able to read the field. However, only Mike, Tyler, and the CRM admin can update that field and update on create, which simply means they can edit it when it's being created. So let's jump into CRM and I'll show you how to do this. The very first and most important step is to enable field security profiles, or enable field security, for the field. So what I do is I just jump into any opportunity record. And what I go to is I click on the form. So this is the form editor. And I'll expand this. This just takes a minute to load because it's loading your entire form and the fields and the ability to edit that information. I find my manual opportunity discount. Simply double click to open the editor here. Now I want to go to details so I can actually edit the field and not how the field displays on the form. That's another difference. This is where you set read only, is on how the field behaves on the form, so the field behavior. Field security is actually through the details editing the actual field. So enable field security, we just click enable, save and close. And then if you've ever attended one of my admin trainings, you will hear this and I will sound like a broken record. Save, publish, save and close every time you make an adjustment. Because if you don't, that adjustment is not going to appear or be effective within your org. So you always want to make sure that you do that. So once it's done publishing, we just click save and close. What we're going to do now is jump into settings, security. And then we go to field security profiles. And we're going to set up 2 because we want to give everyone access to read, but only specific people access to edit. So we're going to set up 2 field security profiles, one for read and one for edit. So we're going to name this manual opti discount read. And then we just click save. And a really quick item, if you have one business unit within your org and you want to give read access or certain access to everyone, you can actually just go to teams. And then we're going to add a team, because if everybody is added to the business unit team, so a team is set up for your business unit. So right here, LVP webinar, since everybody's in this because I only have one business unit, I can just simply add them because this business unit is a team. Click add. Now they're set up. Now I go to the field permissions section, and right here, manual opportunity discount, I can see that. Now I can edit it, and I simply say allow read. I don't want to allow update, and I don't want to allow them to edit it on the create functionality. So I click OK. I click save and close, and then I create one more. So then this is edit manual opportunity discount. Click save again. Now for this one, we're actually going to go into users, and we're adding 3 specific users. So I go to add, and I'm just grabbing Tyler, Mike, and CRM admin. Click add, go to my field permissions, and I'm giving them wide open access here. So I click in here, yes, allow read, yes, allow update, yes, allow create, click OK, save and close. That's all you have to do. So if we come back to opportunities here, and this affects all your records. So what we do is we load up the opportunity, and we can see this little key right here. That's the field security profile symbol. So because I am CRM admin, I can edit this field. So that's how simple field security profile is. Next, we're going to move into some specialized fields, specifically the roll-up and calculated fields. So what are calculated fields? They're basically fields that help you automatically enter data into CRM based on some various equations that are involving fields on the entity or parent entity. Now, what this is really nice about is instead of having to manually calculate different information and then entering that information to another field, you can have the system do the work for you. You can also make those calculations conditional on fields in the current entity or related entities. So you can have conditions in which a calculation actually occurs. Then you can also do else-if statements, just like you do in business rules. And then you can perform a different calculation based on different conditions. So then that way you can say, if this occurs, do this calculation. Otherwise, else if this occurs, do this other calculation. So a really, really great tool to be able to use. What do they help with? They basically help eliminate the manual calculation entry that I mentioned. And before, you had to have developmental skill and implementation to basically write code to be able to do this. Now an admin can do this for their users and update and change and troubleshoot this themselves because it's not done by code. Now there's 2 different types of calculated fields. I take that back. 2 types, meaning simple or complex. There's many different types of calculated fields. So you can do addition, where you simply add 2 fields together. You can add a specified amount to a field. However, all of these, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and equals, or in division, they can't be used on date and time fields. It's very, very important. Again, subtraction, just like it sounds, subtract one field from another, subtract a specific amount, excuse me. Same with multiplication and division. Now, equals, that's simply setting the field to equal another one. Where this is kind of interesting is, like on an opportunity, if you know that you want to show information from the account, the parent account, to this opportunity, and you want to be able to display that information on the opportunity, you can actually use a calculated field to show that. So it does that. But what it also does is it allows you to set that connection to extend a workflow, because a workflow can only basically go a level deep. This will allow you to even go 2 levels deep in a workflow, kind of using that equals from the parent entity. So it's a really great feature to be able to use. Now, complex calculated fields, this is where it comes into utilizing the date and time fields. So you can actually add or subtract hours, days, weeks, months, or years from a field. So basically you're adding a specific amount of time to a date and time field and then displaying that date and time. Now, difference in time, this must be set up as a number field, because you're calculating the difference between 2 date and time fields. Now, for both of these, the date and time formats must be set up the same. So they really need to be set up in the exact same manner in order to be able to use these calculated fields. Otherwise, you'll get an error when you're doing the calculated field. The now feature, this is actually more used in calculations because it gives you the current date and time. An example would be, show me how long a record's been open. So you do the difference in days between the created on date and now. And then that will give you that information. So that's really important to be able to calculate. Concat, this simply means you can take multiple single lines of text and push them all together into one field. You can trim left, you can trim right. Where this is kind of useful is, for example, social security numbers. If in a view you only want to display the last 4, you can trim off from the left-hand side, trim it down to the last 4 numbers. You can do that, which is really nice to be able to do. So when and where should I use calculated fields? Basically, when 2 or more fields can be used to provide beneficial information. So some different examples: how long a record's been open, difference between the estimated close date and actual close date. How close was I with my estimated close date? Same with estimated revenue and actual revenue. Was I really off on what I thought this opportunity was going to be, or was I pretty much spot on? You can add hours, days, weeks, and months or years to a field and display that new date. You can figure out the total discount applied to an opportunity. Merge single line text fields into one. This one's pretty interesting. You can prorate the amount the customer will purchase for the year. It takes a little bit more calculation and a little bit more than just one calculated field, but it's possible to do, and it would be a great tool. And then you can calculate the total value of an item, so simply quantity times unit price. And again, when a field on a parent entity needs to be used in a calculation, perfect for calculated fields. Now, however, there are limitations of a calculated field. Only fields on the record or its immediate parent entity can be used in a calculated field. You can reference other calculated fields, but not the calculated field currently being set up. So you can't reference yourself, in other words. Charts and queries, you can only have a maximum of 10 calculated fields on those. Cannot calculate when the user is offline. So if you're in offline mode, calculated fields aren't going to work. In a specific field cannot be used in a calculated field if that field references a related entity or references another calculated field. So very important to keep in mind. Next, we're going to jump into rollup fields. Specifically, what's a rollup field? Rollup field, it calculates a specified field from all the child records, rolls them up in a calculation, and puts that calculation onto the parent entity. A really common one is what you see over here on the right-hand side. All of your open opportunities. If you want to know, for this for every account that I go into, I want a field that tells me how much I have in open revenue that could be closed. But you could set your conditions here and say sum up the estimated revenue and display that on account. So you can add those conditions so you're only pulling the information from specific child records. In this case, only open opportunities. You can also add a condition on the entity housing the rollup field, in other words, account, if you're utilizing the hierarchy. So this has to be set to yes. You can calculate the following. You can do the sum, which is the most common. You can do the maximum, the minimum, or the average. Rollup fields, they can run every hour. The rollup field can be run on demand by simply clicking on a refresh button that's on the field. So there would be, if I was on this field, there'd be a little refresh button right here. Just click it, and it will refresh and run the rollup for you. Otherwise, it runs every hour. And then the first run of the rollup field will not run for 12 hours. There are ways, of course, around that through customization, but out of the box, this is how it's done. When and where should I use rollup fields? Basically, whenever there's several records values that you would like to total the information together or find the maximum, the minimum, or the average. Some different examples: products and an opportunity. You can roll up to show the total amount. The cost of various goods on a project. You can roll that information up and see the total cost of the project. And then an account with several opportunities that can be rolled up to see the total revenue. You could do it by actual, you could do it by estimated, you could set those different conditions. Now, again, just like with calculated fields, rollup fields do have some limitations. When you create a new rollup field, the first rollup won't occur for 12 hours, then it runs every hour after that. Rollup fields cannot trigger a workflow. So in other words, if you wanted to say on an account, when this rollup field is over $1 million, I want to notify the sales manager. Fortunately, that can't trigger a workflow. You can only have 10 rollup fields per entity and only 100 rollup fields in the entire organization. So if you use the maximum 10 on 10 different entities, you can't use any more rollup fields. And then the modified by and modified on are not updated when the rollup field is updated. So it doesn't trigger an update on those two fields. Next, we're going to jump into XRM Toolbox. This is a fantastic tool that can save you a lot of time and a lot of headaches. And this one is really, really important. This one we're going to do a short demo on as well, but it's restoring records from auditing. So if you have auditing turned on, you can see which records have been deleted by certain users or all users for a specific entity between a certain date range, and you can restore them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into XRM Toolbox, and there were 7 accounts deleted between 11:10 and 11:15. So let's pull this over. So I'm going to scroll down to my recycle bin right here, and I'm going to load my entities and users. So that's my first step. Once it loads this information, it'll just finish here. It's connecting to CRM, loading this information, all the entities with the auditing that's enabled, and all your users. So it does take a little bit of time to do. And then once it's done, you're able to set your entity. So I'm going to set it to account. And you can pick a specific user. You can also use it as all users. And I'm going to do between 11:10 and 11:15, show me the deleted. Now it's going to load all my deleted records. And let's say I wanted to restore these 3. Click restore record. That one simply, it didn't exist. So let me jump back in. Restore record. And this is an issue with, I apologize, this is an issue with my test org, but you would click that button and then it would restore that documentation back, restore that record back into CRM, and you would be able to see that information. So really, really great tool. So it's a way to, if somebody accidentally deletes something, instead of having to manually recreate that account, you can actually go in here and restore it. So it's a really great tool to be able to use. Next, we're going to talk about the editing audit settings. So you've heard me touch base on our last webinar for the top tips every admin should know about auditing. You can also turn on auditing through XRM Toolbox. So you can turn on audit settings for the system. You can enable entities for auditing. So here you would turn it on. You can add an entity. So simply click add entity, choose that entity. It's the same kind of process to disable auditing. And then adding and removing specific fields works in very much the same way. So it's a really great tool to be able to use and cut down the amount of time it takes to set up auditing. Also moving solutions from dev to production. And so instead of going into your dev org, putting everything into a solution, exporting the solution, and then going into production and importing the solution, you can actually do it right from XRM Toolbox. So you go to the solution transfer tool, click load solution right here. Then you want to choose your source environment. So your source environment will appear right here. Then you want to select your target organization, enter the connection information. Now don't click load solution again, because what's going to happen is its connection is now to your dev org, because otherwise you're then going to pull the information. When you load the solution, it's going to pull it from your production org instead of your dev org. So you basically want to make sure you have the source and target set up. Once you choose the target, don't try to go back and load the solutions. So then you select the solution that you want to transfer. Then you simply go into the options and you select the options that you want for your import. Now, we highly recommend setting it up this way. Do not export the selected solution as managed. Yes, activate the plugin steps and workflows, and yes, publish your solution after you've imported it. You want to make sure you check those and do not convert it to a managed solution, just like we talked about in the last webinar. And then click transfer solution and you're ready to go. Another one that is really great, tends to be used best when making updates to data or basically running a workflow on demand for a bunch of records. This can be done for record cleanup, migration. You're moving an old entity to a new entity and you want to copy over some specific information, you can do that. So this is kind of a tool that allows you to do it for many, many records at a time. So what you want to do is you want to click on bulk workflow execution, choose the on-demand workflow you wish to run. So you would choose that here, select the view. So basically you want to create a view for the specific records you want to run this workflow on. So you want to make sure you have all your filtering and everything set up correctly, because it will run the workflow on all of those records. Then choose the batch size. You can go 0 to 1,000, which means it'll do that amount at a time, pause, then do that amount again, pause, so on and so forth until it's gone through all of your records. I usually recommend doing about 500 as middle of the road. Then you can set it at an interval delay, so when it pauses, you can set it to delay for a certain amount of time. Not necessary. And then validate the query, and then start your workflow right here. And then you can just simply let it run in the background. It's not going to affect you being able to jump back into CRM and continue to do work. And then you can also edit users' personal settings. This is really, really nice because if you're set up for server-side sync or email router, there is a button, specifically email settings, allow emails on my behalf, that if you have workflows that are being sent out from a specific person, but the system is technically sending them, if this isn't set to yes, those workflows won't go out. So this is a very important thing to set. And you can set this for the user without having them go in or showing them how to go in and edit that information. You can do it for them. Simply click on the user settings utility in the XRM Toolbox, load the users and settings, select the specific users you want to edit, change their settings here, click Update User Settings. That's it. Next, we're going to touch briefly on Microsoft Flow. Microsoft Flow is basically, it's an automated workflow process that goes across apps and services. So essentially between SharePoint and CRM, between Twitter and CRM, so on and so forth. It's a cloud service, and after the flows are built, they can be managed through desktop and mobile app. And you can utilize templates to create workflows. There's a bunch of templates in the Microsoft Flow section that you can use and then tweak to work for you. Some different examples of what Microsoft Flow can do for you. Can add new leads to Dynamics 365 every time you update an Excel spreadsheet. You can create leads from tweets. You can create a list in SharePoint when a new record is created in CRM. So you can see they're connecting between these different apps, not just within 365. You can create a new record in Dynamics 365 when a new item is added to a SharePoint list. And even when a new opportunity is created in 365, you can send out an email using your SMTP server. There's also a new thing called Team Flows, and that's a different thing where you can set up to have multiple owners of a flow. When a file that has been added to OneDrive contains a 365 contacts, this is kind of an example of a flow and how it looks. So when that file has been added to OneDrive and it contains a 365 contacts last name, you could automatically attach that file to the record in 365 as a note. So basically saying when a file is created, look at the organization name, the condition is the file name, condition Dynamics last name. If yes, create a new record. So there's your kind of your flow on how it's created. That's all for our admin training. Next, I'm going to quickly jump into our one user submitted question. This is a great question. We have some business teams that want to use business process flows and some that do not. It appears to be that the setup is all or none. I realize that for the teams that do not want business process flows, I can make a very minimalistic flow. Excellent question. And actually, you can, for business teams, there's a few different ways we can set this up. So it kind of depends on your specific sales process in terms of the best way to set this up. But one way to do it is you can actually do it through security roles. Now, the out-of-the-box business process flows, they have a security setting right in security roles where you can basically edit those security roles for that. So if each business team utilizes a specific security role, so you could basically set it up that all your users don't have access to business process flows, but the team has a security role that has business process flow access. Because security is additive, it's going to add that ability on top of the user security role. Then each business team is basically saying, hey, if you're part of this business team, you now have this additional access to the business process flow. Where if there's business teams that don't, they wouldn't have a security role that gives them access to being able to utilize business process flows. Then they wouldn't use them. Now, custom business process flows, they can be enabled for specific security roles. So that's where it gets a little bit different. So then you could say, hey, that security role that I set up for that business team, then I can enable this custom business process flow for that security role. So that's a way to manage who can see business process flows or not. Again, there's other ways to do this through workflows as well. But excellent question.
All right, thanks, Mike, for another great user group. Please, before everyone leaves today, we have a large lineup of upcoming webinars before the end of the year that you'll want to hear about. First, coming up on November 30th, we have Enabling Cross-Channel Personalization, where Jody Gilroy is going to be focusing on how you can leverage marketing automation and CRM technologies to create a personalized message at scale. So not just your typical John Deere message, insert here email, but she's going to go well beyond that. Following that one on December 6th, We have our Creating the Sales Process That Will Drive Results webinar, where we're going to outline the keys to success in creating a sales process with not only results, but it's going to have your sales team actually adopting the process and using it, which is always a tough part, getting that user adoption from sometimes the sales team. Then for those of you that may be evaluating different CRM solutions, on Thursday, December 7th, we're hosting one of our most popular webinars, Salesforce versus Dynamics 365. Tom Lemerand is going to dig in and evaluate real-world scenarios and how you would use each tool to accomplish your goal. So you're going to get a real look at the similarities and differences of the two leading CRM solutions by actually seeing examples of them used. Then on December 13th, we have our Leveraging LinkedIn for Manufacturers webinar, and that's going to shift your perception of LinkedIn as just a job board business development tool that's going to help align your brand and also connect with your target customers. And finally, we close out our 2017 webinars with Mike coming back for one more weather report before the new year for the user group. Mike's going to be covering a new feature in Dynamics 365 called Organizational Insights. That's going to allow admins to check storage, check usage, and other various uses he's going to cover as well. So you won't want to miss that one. All right, now all these webinars, of course, will have links and more info for registration in the on-demand email that's going to be coming out tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. And be sure to sign up for the ones that really interest you. From Mike, myself, and all of us at Ledgeview Partners, have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday and enjoy the rest of your day.